Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out with some important breaking news. The mod father, Vinny, has been found. I repeat, he has been found safe and sound. I was a poet and I didn't know it. Ayman Khan, delighted to have you joining me as well for the latest edition, albeit belated, of Seconds Out Live. We were supposed to be here at 5 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, but unfortunately we were delayed while we were searching. We're on a search far and wide for the mod father, Vinny, and thankfully he turned up without a mark on him. So we're delighted by that. And you're all still here, hopefully. I think there are only about 5 people waiting at 5 o'clock. So I think we've got a few more now. Ayman, how are you? How's everything going?
Yeah, all good. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. I had a bit of a haircut. It's still looking a bit wild and weary over up on the top.
What do you ask for to get that at the barbers?
I hold up a picture of you. And they go, all right. And they go, no, short back and size, long top. Don't touch the top. As you can see, I'm trying to kind of mold everything over so I don't look too old at the top. So yeah, I thought I'd skip the hat away because people are realizing it's a prime hat up top. So, and you can just see me in the flesh, warts and all. Greenwich Mean Time, it was indeed. We were a little bit mean to Vinny, but he's okay now. We've spared him the groveling apology, but we're great to be here. Great to see you guys all in the chat, firing your questions and comments and debating with us. Can't wait to chop it all up. And we have a real big and interesting topic at the start, don't we, Danny?
We do, yeah. As you can see from the headline on the screen, Bellew, salty or sensible. I should underline the fact that this isn't a question about Tony Bellew's general outlook on life, because I'm sure people will have their view on that. But it's more about the comments he made on Matchroom's YouTube channel, I believe it was, to Jamie Ward with Eddie Hearn in the background, uncharacteristically quiet while Tony Bellew was talking. And he was asked for his prediction on Tyson Fury against Oleksandr Usyk. And among other comments, he said that Tyson Fury only had a puncher's chance. And just to give him a bit more shade, he's not that big of a puncher anyway. The bomber's words, not mine. And that, when I say the bomber, it is not connected with any atrocities around the world. Just to echo one of Adam Smith's more infamous moments there. But yeah, Tony Bellew, was he throwing shade at Tyson Fury, or is that what he really feels? And is there any, veracity, any credibility to that opinion? We want to know what you guys think. So we're going to put a poll out, and we'll keep it simple. Bellew, we'll just say Bellew salty or sensible, yes, or salty or sensible. There'll be the 2 options. But just know when we say that, we're talking specifically about his comments on Tyson Fury. Ayman, what did you make of those comments?
I was quite surprised that Tony was diminishing Fury's chances in a fight against Usyk. Now, I know that I imagine a lot of it will come from the fight that he had with Usyk. He knows firsthand how good an operator Usyk is, although he might have been winning the fight on some of the judges' scorecards at the time. It didn't end in his favor with Tony looking up at the lights by the end of the night, by the end of the final bell. So I imagine a lot of that has a bit to do with Tony's experience with the current unified heavyweight champion. But I believe, if I'm right in saying that maybe Fury and Bellew aren't the best of bedfellows, I guess it is in the past. And I remember harking back to at least the one clip that gets thrown up every now and again on Twitter, or X as it is, Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, of Fury calling that David Price and Tony Bellew catching a stray or two in there as well. So I think a lot of it might come from that as well too. But to count Fury out and diminish him to having a puncher's chance really kind of baffles me out. Now I get that off of the back of Fury's last performance, he didn't look great. He didn't look good against Francis Ngannou. Fury didn't pull any excuses out. Fury was, a lot more quiet and not shouting to the rafters as he does do post-fights and such. But some people might see that as a sign of decline. Some of the signs coming out of the camp is there's a sign of decline, or sometimes, or you might believe that actually the camp went good and such and such. We had a lot of things coming out of it. Maybe Bellew's putting those little bits and blocks together to come up to a conclusion to say that Fury's just not the person he was, and he's going to get bamboozled in the ring against Usyk when it comes to May. But for me, I can't agree with Tony Bellew saying that he believes Fury as a puncher's chance. This is the leading heavyweight of our generation. This is the man who, when you've counted him out beforehand, when you've counted him out in ring, live, in action, he's risen to occasion. He's risen to the challenge. I think, again, he'll rise to the challenge and the occasion against Usyk. I do personally still pick Usyk as the winner as of right now, but it's a closer fight than someone having just a puncher's chance for sure.
Yeah, let's go to the chat. I can see that Salty has taken an early lead in our poll about Tony Bellew's comments. Paranormal Immortal says Tyson has huge reach. He's put it all in caps, so we know it's really huge. Says more power and is a switcher, but only has a puncher's chance. Laughing my arse off, Bellew. Anderson de Silva says hope Tyson wins. Winner fights Huey Fury. Correct. I think that's incorrect, Anderson de Silva. Ariel Esteban Bracamonte. I love it when they use these like average heavyweights, no offense, monikers. Can you imagine being in a clinch with Huey, be covered in blood and pus? Oh, I am imagining it now, actually. Thanks for that. Ramoni Mode XD, what do you think about apparently Bellew coming out of retirement at 42 or something? I think he should stay retired. I think he achieved the absolute peak of not only his career, but a lot of fighters' careers when he had that great night at Goodison Park. I don't think he's got anything else to prove. Unless he's running out of money, I think he should stay retired, doing the punditry work and so on. Tarmac one says Ayman looks like he's had a go at combing his hair. That's all we ask. All we ask is effort. Tarmac one then follows it up by saying Bellew has never got over being called David Price's gay lover, which is the comment that Ayman was referring to back in, I think it was on Channel 5 back in the day. You plumber from Liverpool. I can't do the impression. Funnily enough, David Price does a cracking Tyson Fury impression. But also, that was never likely because, you know, David Price, quite a handsome-looking man. No offence to Tony Bellew, but you talk about puncher's chance. No, that was a flattering description from Fury. Ayman, mate, book yourself a stopover in Turkey on the way to Saudi. Get yourself a new trim, fella, says DB Cooper 1.
I'll go bold gracefully.
I'm sure you've missed DB Cooper 1. Phil Mitchell, if only. Tony Bellew wants Usyk to really win. I can see straight through his narrative. Makes his own severe knockout to Usyk look a bit more beautiful. Yeah, it was a cracking shot, to be fair. Larry Liston, call me crazy. I still got Fury beating Usyk in a close competitive affair. Could be controversial, perhaps. DB Cooper 1 follows up. If Johnny Nelson is a company man, talking about catching strays, Big Johnny's just caught one there, then Tony Bellew is the company itself. His U-turn on Conor Benn made me lose all respect for a guy who was vocal on drugs in sports. Yeah, I mean, we could turn this into a complete Bellew character assassination, but I don't think that's entirely fair or would necessarily fit into our allotted time. Leon the Canteen, good to hear from you again. It's been a while. Says, a puncher's chance for a non-puncher is like 10% chance. It's not a 90-10 Usyk fight, even if you're picking Usyk. Very good point. Liam66, Bellew's so company man, he championed a man who works for a state government that outlaws homosexuality, which Bellew himself said he's proud to have in his family. We're getting very deep very early on here, and no, that is not a euphemism. Cloud Strife, a puncher's chance is mad disrespectful. Jay Sharp, Bellew in need of media attention more than Ab Fab women. Ab Fab? That's a dated reference, is it? Coming from the 42-year-old in the chat. Who else? CNP Russell CNP says, doesn't Porky's Corner say it how it is? Pop, pop, bang. Yeah, I mean, I've never watched it, but I'm sure he does. But we say it how it is too, and maybe with a more refined vocabulary as well. No, but I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know that for sure. Ramoni Mode XD is asking about Canelo. We will be getting on to the Canelo news a bit later on. But I want to talk about another element of the Bellew comments because he was very specific in his prediction. He said that if Tyson Fury was still being trained by his uncle, Peter Fury, and by the way, we've got a lovely exclusive interview with Peter Fury on the channel at the moment. Lovely segue there. He said if he was still trained by Peter Fury and employing the style that he predominantly had when he was working with Peter, which was that kind of move, jab and move, counter-punching style, then he would be backing him to beat Usyk. The reason, or the main reason he's backing Usyk to win is that Fury is now a front foot counter-puncher under Sugar Hill Stewart, and he doesn't think that style has any hope of working against Usyk. Ayman, your thoughts on that?
You know what? I don't know, and that's not to discredit Peter Fury and his coaching abilities and to whether that style specifically would beat Usyk. But from my penny's worth here. I actually feel that that's not the way round to defeat Usyk. We've seen fighters try to box with Usyk beforehand to no real avail. Joshua, quite famously, and then there was the implosion afterwards, quite infamously. Tony Bellew did well to a degree, but that was all leading up to the eventual finish. The best of the bunch so far, especially at heavyweight for me, is Derek Chisora's performance against Oleksandr Usyk. Dubois did well in fits and spurts, but nothing really to cry or shout home about. Whereas Chisora really had levels of success, and Chisora really kind of put him on in there in that first fight. Oh, in that one fight, sorry, my apologies. And I see sort of the game plan, or at least parts of the game plan blueprint there for Fury. And that, I don't remember Fury really kind of leaning or using his size in those moments where he was boxing in amongst that style. Or I think he does. I think that's a big part of his game right now under Sugar Hill, is to use his size, is to use his reach and try and go for the finish where he can. And I think that's what he'll need to do. I think he'll need to lean on. And these are all things that you've heard broken down a lot beforehand. But I just think to take away your physical advantages doesn't sound like to me as the best route of action or best route of success for Tyson Fury. So it's a hard one because of the hypothetical nature of it, and just how well Fury did do as a boxer in that boxing stance and boxing sense. So, yeah, I can see merits in Tony Bellew's argument, but for me, I still think he's on the right path with a Sugar Hill Kronk style against Usyk.
Yeah, and you've got to think they've planned for all the eventualities as well. You know, Sugar Hill's an experienced trainer, and Fury's a very experienced boxer at this point. He's been in with some top fighters. I know his resume takes a bit of criticism now and again, but he has fought Wilder a number of times. He's an incredibly dangerous fighter. And then, you know, a good boxer with a pop as well in Klitschko and beat him on away soil. Wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, not by any means, but, you know, he got the job done. So if anyone knows how to be effective now, I suppose Bellew would counter that by saying, yeah, but he was under Peter Fury for that fight. And maybe it was Peter's game plan that got the job done rather than Fury's own boxing acumen or boxing IQ. A lot of questions will be answered on the 18th of May, but I don't know. It does. I don't want to call it sour grapes necessarily, but I think it is someone in Tony Bellew who's maybe only got one half of the story, in that he's been in there with Usyk. He's seen at first hand how good Usyk can be, what works against him for Bellew, what didn't. And that's given him maybe a slightly inflated opinion of Usyk's overall skill set and quality compared to Fury. You know, as far as I'm aware, he's never sparred Fury or anything like that. And obviously we know they've never fought. So, you know, I'm not so sure he's bitter against Fury because of, you know, decades ago rivalry or catching strays or whatever it was. But I think there is a case that he's got reason to be more impressed by Usyk and more familiar with Usyk than he is with Fury. And maybe that plays into it. Unless he's just saying it to kind of create a bit more buzz around the fight. But then I'm not sure why he would do that. He doesn't seem to have a horse in the race on that score. But let's have a look at what the chat's saying. We've got quite a few in here. Ramoni Mode XD. The reason that he isn't with Peter is because Tyson gave Peter money to set up the Huey Parker fight with the expectation of the money back. Yeah, I'm not going to stop reading it there because I don't think we can prove what you're saying in this thing, Ramoni Mode XD. So I'd ask you maybe not to say things like that in the live chat. And I maybe need to read them before I start talking aloud. Stats Killer says, I'll say Usyk by 10th, 11th round TKO stoppage or by UD. If not, then Fury will pull out of an injury or have some kind of travel visa, passport or other problem entering Saudi Arabia. You give yourself quite a few potential problems for Fury there. You've kind of hedged your bets quite a lot. Liam66 says, Breedis caused Usyk the most issues because he could almost keep up with Usyk's footwork and constant turning. Yeah, I'm not sure Fury will be able to do that. And I'm not sure Usyk is the same fighter at heavyweight that he was at cruiser as well. That's the other thing. Ramoni Mode XD, this one I can read out, says, I thought you could argue Breedis won that fight, by the way. Leon the Canteen, I think the main style to work against Usyk is not to be snake charmed by him and not do your own work. I don't think Fury will be snake charmed. Larry Liston, I think the first cancellation of the fight rattled Usyk a bit. I think Tyson has the mental advantage. That's an interesting one in terms of mental advantage. You know, we see Fury's mind games and, you know, famously in the build up to the Klitschko fight, the problems with the canvas and other elements that his team brought up. But Usyk's known for being incredibly mentally strong. He's the guy that won all his world cruiserweight title fights in his opponent's backyard, or all his WBSS fights in his opponent's backyard. He's also, you know, been on the front line with the soldiers in Ukraine and so on as well. So he's kind of put out there as this, you know, mental master, if you like. So I'm not really sure who has the edge mentally. Would Usyk, having done everything he's done so far, both in the sport and outside, really be rattled by a postponement of the fight? I'm not so sure. Ayman, who do you feel's got kind of the mental edge?
I think that we over here in the UK really kind of play up the foreigner aspect of this, because we don't know too much about the Eastern Europeans. We still see them as being these kind of different personalities, different people, different morals, different standards. And yes, of course, they do have those certain standards, but they're not all these iron-willed mentality monsters, as Jurgen Klopp might call his Liverpool team.
His Carabao Cup winning Liverpool team.
Carabao Cup winning, yes, for sure.
Out.
$1 billion bottle jobs and all that. Bloody hell, that was a line and a half, weren't it?
Oh, Gary Neville. I might actually start to like him.
But yeah, no, I think we kind of build them up. It must come from like the Rocky movies and all that sort of stuff with Ivan Drago and that. But for me, I think Usyk is a bit. I put out a tweet the other day, and I was saying that Jack Catterall for me is someone who comes across as ice cold, and I feel like him grabbing Taylor's throat and things like that is all part of their plan, not him being rattled. But I think me stepping into those shoes, and maybe you can say I don't have that mentality, but I'd certainly be annoyed if I'm having to delay my camp, to not miss my child's birth, to not get the fight I'm waiting for, to be aging and keep aging, to be the fighter who seemingly wants to be in the ring, to be played around and to be goaded. I think Usyk does his speaking through Klimas and Krashik, whereas Fury does his speaking through Fury. And that's the difference there. So we get those sides of Oleksandr Usyk's personality from them. And I think he plays into that, because the guy, as we know, he can speak English, but he doesn't choose to speak English and understand, or sometimes he doesn't choose to speak English because maybe it's not as thorough as obviously his native tongue would be, but he can communicate through those ways, but chooses to be a bit more secretive, to be a bit more holding his cards to the chest by using the translation services that he does have. And I think that's a lot of, I think Usyk doesn't want to give his personality away, apart from the little tidbits that we see that he allows us to see. And I think that's all part of it. We haven't really unveiled what Usyk is really about as a person. But no, for me, in terms of the mentality war, I can't pick a clear winner for now, but I will say that I do think Usyk has bitten to some of Tyson Fury's games.
Yeah, we'll go to the chat in a second, but just in case you're only just joining us, we've got a poll out. Tony Bellew's much reported comments about Tyson Fury only having a puncher's chance against Usyk because of his more aggressive style under Sugar Hill Steward. Are those comments sensible or salty? Please vote in our poll and let us know what you think. Ramoni Mode XD, to beat Usyk, you need to Chisora him up. That's an actual verb. Push him on the back foot for the full fight and hit him to the body. That's not chisoring him up. Surely chisoring him up is putting him on the back foot and hitting the body for the first 4 to 6 rounds of the fight. Full fight if it's a 6 rounder, I'll give you that. But the Chisora of 2023 or 24 vintage, probably not going to be all over you like white on rice, as they used to say. Phil Mitchell, Zhang versus Parker. Danny, what do you think, pal? Brilliant fight. I agree. It is a brilliant fight. I actually fancy Zhang. I know a lot of people are picking Parker, including Big John Fury in an interview that's on our channel at the moment. Little spoiler alert there. I think you're supposed to say spoiler alert before you give away the spoiler, aren't you? So I've messed that up. But yeah, I think Zhang, I mean, we haven't got time to really go into it in great depth, but I just think Zhang is on form. I think his conditioning will be better than it has been in the past for this fight, particularly, mainly because he told me it would be. And I believed him because I was too scared to contradict him, probably. And I think Parker's looking really good recently as well, but I just think Parker's probably got a few more miles on the clock as a professional, even though he's the younger man. I think Zhang's got the momentum at the right time. But we shall see. It is a cracking fight. Best fight on that card by far. Conor Mason says Usyk is far more mentally strong than Fury. Liam66 says, or asks, is Fury's reach and being so proficient with his left hand, will that stop Usyk dominating opponent's right side like he does every other orthodox fighter he's fought? It's a very good point. Fury's got a very underrated jab, and if he employs it correctly, it could make a big difference. Ramoni Mode XD, I just saw a video Usyk uploaded preparing himself by getting hit in the body by a lightweight, and he looked in pain. Lol. Trust me, if you get hit in the same place over and over and over again, even by someone significantly lighter than you, it will hurt. It's the accumulation of damage into the same area. It's just, I was going to say it's standard physics, but I think it's probably biology. I don't know the scientific terms, but trust me, try it. Try it yourself. Find someone who's a lot smaller than you and get them to just whack you over and over in the same point of your body, and let me know. Let us know next week in the live chat if it hurt, if you're still around. Stats Killer says coordination advantage is the key in this fight. GM says, I can't see this fight happening somehow. That's not very optimistic, GM. Come on, be positive. Leon the Canteen, Bellew, Early, Breedis, and Chisora have done the best versus Usyk, all of which didn't fall under his spell. It's true, but even if you're avoiding falling under his spell, you are still being forced to work, even if it's only mentally working. You don't have to fall under his spell to be consumed with what he's doing. You know, the constant feints, whether it be with the feet or with the hands or the shoulders or whatever, that's going to tire you out. It's going to make you move. For everything Usyk does, you do have to react. And as we saw against Bellew, particularly Chisora also, they did start to tire markedly in the second half of those fights. Connor Mason says you're only as good as your last fight, so I take it he's picking Usyk. Liam66, Usyk team does come across as very meticulous. Does that mean interruptions in camp affects them more, as they'd be following a strict schedule? No, I think they'd probably be better at adapting, if anything. They'd probably have a plan A, B, and C. That'd be how I'd take it. Larry Liston, I hate to say this one-liner cliche, but styles make fights, and Fury does have a style that could create problems for the smaller Usyk. Cliches are cliches for a reason, Larry, and I think that's fair enough. Paranormal Immortal, look at the problems Usyk had versus Del Boy, and then look what Tyson's done to Del Boy 3 times. Yeah, but that comes back to styles make fights. I don't think that one necessarily leads to the other. Usyk was saved against Dubois 100%. I think that's a stretch as well, but we'll get into that one another time, I think. Connor Mason says Zhang will beat him. Parker can't beat anyone heavy. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back over his record and have a think about that. But yeah, CMPR, Russell CMP. Bellew's going to say that because Usyk put him on his back without going out of first gear. That's kind of what Ayman said, not the first gear bit. Also, Bellew's mate lost twice against Usyk and he's on Eddie's payroll. Well, yeah, I mean, it was actually on Matchroom's channel when he said it. Fury needs to get in there and fight dirty. Push Usyk around, lean on him. Back of the head punches, elbows, everything, says Cloud Strife. Yeah, I mean, I think who they have as a referee will be very important in that fight as well, and how lenient / strict that referee decides to be. Larry Liston, I think Zhang takes Parker out within 6 rounds. I love how Zhang and Parker have somehow worked their way onto the SO live schedule of today's episode when it wasn't planned. He's much more precise than Wilder and also more active. AB guy, Fury will get a decision win if he puts on the same performance as AJ did in the second Usyk fight. I'm assuming you mean because of the physical advantages that it'll be more effective coming from Fury than it was Joshua. DB Cooper 1, to be fair to Bellew, when you take a step back, his comments are sensible. He's just commenting on the evolution of Fury in recent years. You'd have to go back 4 to 5 plus years for the old non-KO Fury. Yeah, that's true. I think that part of it's fine to say how his style's changed, even to say that style may prove less effective against Usyk than the older style under Peter Fury. But I don't think you can say he's only got a puncher's chance. I think that's too extreme. But then that gives away how I'd be voting in the poll, I suppose. Massive Coconut says, hello all, Keith here. I assume that's Keith Fraser, a good friend and reporter. Leon the Canteen says, agreed, but the same does apply the other way around. If Fury's working, Usyk will have to worry about Fury. Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. Do we see Fury do as much of that kind of feinting to set traps and stuff? He does it more than the average massive heavyweight, but I don't think he does it anywhere near as much as Usyk. Usyk's like a cruiserweight version of his friend and compatriot Lomachenko in that sense. He's always doing something, even if he's not throwing punches. He's always doing something to make you think or to make you work or both. And I think that's going to be a problem no matter which version of Fury turns up. But I am backing Fury to win the fight. All right, so we talked about that. Another aspect of the fight we did an interview probably about 2 months ago now with John Fury. And in typically robust fashion, Big John was not impressed with Tyson Fury's training camp for the Francis Ngannou fight. Very, very disappointed he was at the time, both with Sugar Hill Stewart and just generally the condition that Fury arrived in for the Ngannou fight and the performance that he put on the night. But in a more recent interview that he did with freebets.com, and you can see it also on our channel right now, he talks about how they've kind of proved him wrong, or at least stepped up to the mark in his view, because looking at Tyson's shape before the cut happened for the Usyk fight, so the original training camp, he felt Tyson looked in amazing shape. And he thinks that maybe his doubts and concerns about the camp have been assuaged. Ayman, what did you think of Big John's about turn?
Yeah, I had a little listen to that as I was looking through the interview itself. Good interview. Everyone go check it out. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already seen it. But yeah, when there were those little whispers coming out of the camp and John's fears and concerns, as he's right to have those fears and concerns as his son heads towards the undisputed heavyweight clash. John wasn't certain because it seems, is now on the outskirts looking in as opposed to being in and involved in the camp. And that seems to be a conscious decision from the Fury team to be full focus and not have anything, distracting them, as John can sometimes be a little bit loud, and he's his own part of the party as well too, is John. But they seem to want to put him on the outside for now as they prepare for the Usyk fight. So John couldn't see what was going on, but he could see the proof in the pudding. And from what it seems to be, from the pictures we were given that came out of the camp, that Fury did look in brilliant shape for that fight. Fury did look like someone who was ready to contest for the undisputed crown, as opposed to when he came in against Francis Ngannou. He didn't look in great shakes, although once again, he gave no excuses for that being the case. Now, I can see that. I can see why John, who had those fears, now has that proof and now has a bit more confidence going into it. Whether that's confidence in the camp and still maybe not the confidence in Sugar Hill, I think he still has those reservations in Sugar himself. Those will have to be proven still, I believe. But good signs all around. I think there's probably been a conscious effort as well too to make sure there's good little whispers coming out of these camps, as opposed to the ones we were hearing about being dropped in sparring and a mole in the camp as well, which John Fury also set his thoughts on that as to whether there was a mole in the Fury camp or not, as Johnny Nelson was saying there was. So, but yeah, it seems like we're getting good waves, good vibrations coming out of the Fury camp, and Big John changes heart and lending his support to that is a good sign.
Nice to hear a Beach Boys reference from the younger man in this SO Live. Larry Liston says, against Ngannou, his reflexes were off, his timing wasn't there, and he couldn't land the right hand. Those kind of mistakes will get punished badly by Usyk. Yeah, but that's if we expect the same version of Fury to turn up, which I think most people don't at this point. Leon the Canteen, against Joshua and Dubois, that are standing off and foil sword fencing, ha. Cloud Strife. Oh, sorry, the chat has just gone down the screen. John Fury called out Phil Mitchell for a bare knuckle in his barn. I think Phil Mitchell's one of the few people that he didn't call out for a bare knuckle in his barn, but it seems like anyone can get it. Seems like there's an open invitation to the Fury barn, wherever that is. Fury barn and then the postcode. That's all you need. All the local cabbies know where it is and avoid it.
You're going down.
Matthew Ray says Fury at a lower weight. Sorry, say again.
You're going down into the barn.
I'll film it against someone else. I'm not going to participate. They'd have to take me out in a box, wouldn't they? I'm not crazy. Matthew Ray says Fury at a lower weight isn't the best fit for him. He fights better being heavier. John Fury criticised Ben Davison for getting him to a lower weight and is now praising Sugar. Yeah, I think it's more the fact that he saw the performance level against Ngannou and he's assuming that one equals the other. That Fury was, chubby, sloppy, fat against Ngannou, and now, looks in much better shape, and he's kind of thinking, well, maybe that means he'll put on a much better performance. Chris Mitchell says he's a great fighter, Usyk, but I'm surprised how many people think Usyk is favourite, totally discrediting Fury. I think Fury has the attributes to win multiple ways, but I see a Steve Cunningham part 2. So you see Fury getting knocked down early, then using an illegal forearm to push his opponent off before landing the finishing blow. Interesting. I wonder what the bookies will give me on that. DB Cooper 1. John has never really liked Sugar Hill. He's made such comments for years, I recall. I think there has been issues between them. I think that is fair. Fury's KO run just shut him up for a while. John's just a sad influencer these days. Get him Love Island pensioners. Wow. DB Cooper 1. I think you need to get to the barn, mate. You know, have a Barney in the barn with Big John Fury. We'll stream it on Seconds Out. Cloud Strife says, I bet Tyson wishes his dad just shuts up. Yeah, didn't Shane Fury do an interview where he said, you know, he didn't want his dad to keep talking about the Fury stuff, or he didn't want his dad to keep offering people out, or both, perhaps. Leon the Canteen, I think it's a 50-50 pick 'em. I'm not going to pick a draw. Fury win for me. DP Cooper 1. Is it true Charlie Parsons is the new SOT boy? How do you chaps take your tea? Charlie Parsons is not the new SOT boy, but we've signed a non-disclosure agreement anyway about who our new tea boy really is. How do you chat? I don't drink tea. I don't drink any hot drinks. I know it's weird, but it's true. I only drink cold drinks. Eamon, how do you take your tea?
I don't drink tea. The closest to have tea is green tea, and that's about it. And I haven't had that in a while, so me neither, Danny.
There you go, DB Cooper 1. That fell flat, didn't it? Liam66. Have fans been overrating Fury's skills, or is it just his size that makes his skills look more effective? I think there's an element of that in that, you know, we're not used to seeing such skills from a man that big. Fury's defense is mainly reliant on reflexes, reach, and offensively, he's never been the best. Yeah, but I think when you combine his general boxing ability and IQ with those physical advantages, it presents a puzzle unlike any other that we've seen probably ever in the heavyweight division. Larry Liston, the referee's part in this can be crucial. If Fury is allowed to fight dirty, that could completely change the fight. I'm sure I've heard that somewhere before, that viewpoint. Oh, yeah, it was me about 2 minutes ago. Thank you, Larry Liston. I'm going to take that as you backing me up. DB Cooper says, the barn, send location. Me and Eamon will head down there tonight. There you go, Eamon. You've been roped in. At least DB Cooper's offering you a lift.
Yeah. One of them. I get pushed in front of the barn and have to go through.
Yeah, and then he'll drive off. Exactly. Yeah, throw you out. You have to combat roll. Oh, God. Yeah, what do you make of all the John Fury stuff? Just while we're talking about him, before we move on to our next topic, you know, what do you make of him apparently wanting to fight the whole world and his mother?
I find John
Not
Fury
John Fury's
entertaining
mother,
personally.
the whole world and its mother.
I find John Fury quite entertaining, to be honest with you. I don't see him as being this person who needs to get off the scene. We had enough of you, and we don't care what you got to say, and all this, that, and the other. I think John Fury plays his part in the promotion quite well. I think he knows that a lot of it is tongue-in-cheek. I think maybe some of it, I think John probably does want a piece of the pie as well too. And if he can get it, great. If it's something interesting, great. I don't know too much about that sort of scene. I know that there's some fella called Joe Egan that wants him as well, and that doesn't really do anything for me because I don't really know who Joe Egan is or would want to see that fight with respect to that fella. He's never going to get anything from KSI. They're never going to fight. Who else wants him? Carl Froch. The Carl Froch back and forths are quite funny. Those sort of little bits keep the industry kind of going, don't they? So yeah, no, I find John Fury I take him with a bit of a pinch of salt, but he is a serious man as well too. Definitely don't want to get on John's wrong side, but I find him quite entertaining, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so do I, and I wouldn't dare say otherwise. No, I do find him very entertaining. I don't want to see him fight Carl Froch though, because you know, I'd have serious concerns. And I think Froch has too. I don't think he'd fancy, you know, hurting someone of John's age and ability level and so on, you know. And I think that's why it will never be an actual exhibition or fight or anything of that nature. And I don't think Froch, as much as he loves having it on the cobbles, as he said in the past, I don't think he's going to go to the barn anytime soon. You know, joking aside, I think someone of Froch's standard and age and, you know, he's still in really good shape. Yeah, he could do John some serious damage, and I don't think anyone wants to see that. Well, I don't know, actually. There probably are some people that want to see it. I spoke too soon there, but yeah, not one I'd fancy. But yeah, Joe Egan, I know equally little about him as you, Eamon, but if they both, you know, if they're a similar age and they both want to get it on, and it can be made in a way that either, you know, is in the barn or behind closed doors, or they can make some money out of it. I'm not sure, you know, how viable that is. Then let them crack on with it, but. You know, we're all about fair fairness here at Seconds Out. Fair fights go along with that. DB Cooper 1 says John Fury versus Peter Fury. I'll watch that. Yeah, I'm sure everyone would, but I'm sure that's happened in the past behind closed doors, hasn't it? Even if it was when they were kids or whatever. But yeah, I don't think we'll ever see that one. They're like the Gallaghers, we're never going to see either a reunion or an actual public dispute. Although, the Gallaghers are a bit younger, so they've got a bit more time to do it. Chris Mitchell, Usyk will go down as a great, I've no doubt, but for me, Fury is the #1 heavyweight and one of the best of all time. I hear a lot about Usyk's IQ. What about Fury's IQ? Fury will adapt as the fight goes on. Larry Liston, John Fury is a bit of a character and a hype man. I think his banter is good leading up to the fights. DP Cooper 1, I'm not reading that. And you'll know where it is. Liam 66, John Fury needs to put hands on someone soon. Otherwise, this hard man act will grow stale amongst even his most hardcores. Leon the Canteen, I think John is just hyping and talking loud to hype up his sons. Any man over 56 is pure hype. It's not hard to find John. He's in style Cheshire. Ramoni Mode XD, didn't John Fury go to prison for gouging a guy's eye out? He'd probably batter Froch in a street fight. I think the guy whose eye he gouged out was about a similar age and kind of shape as him, to be fair, or maybe smaller than him, but definitely a similar age. Wasn't it like Appleby Horse Fair or something like that? And it was a long-running traveller family dispute. I remember reading about it at the time and just thinking, oh, it sounds absolutely disgusting. Like the image of gouging someone's eye out. Anyway, yeah, I'm not sure he would batter Froch in a street fight. It's like people mocked AJ saying that he'd had a street fight and he banged out 6 people or something. But, you look at AJ and how hard he hits and how big he is and how athletic he is. It comes to a certain point where street fighting experience will fade a little bit compared to just having a much bigger, tougher, harder, better fighter, skilled fighter in front of you. Where are we going? Anderson de Silva, will Hughie Fury ever return? According to Peter Fury, as you'll see in the interview on our channel at the moment, he's ready to return now. They're just trying to get him a place on a show. Mick Hennessy still working with Hughie, trying to get him positioned on a show to come back, but he's been sparring Matty Harris recently. He's apparently in good shape. Health problems a thing of the past, so we should see him soon. TB Cooper 1, the dinosaurs will return before Hughie Fury does. Seriously, though, I do feel sorry for him. Your first sentence doesn't really back that up, but I'll take your word for it. So, yeah, some more big news actually broke last night. We'd already kind of decided on what our headline topic for this episode of SO Live was going to be when we began to see reports on X, first of all, and they've been backed up since then by other journalists, that Canelo, after just one fight and his recent relationship with PBC, the win over Jamel Charlo, of course, is now heading back to the comforting embrace of one Eddie Hearn and DAZN. And this isn't a massive surprise. It's not even the first time it's happened. But this was followed up quickly in that we've got a news piece about this on the channel that Josh Green's put together. You can have a look at that if you want. It's very good. But it just explains that there was a tweet last night from Rick Glazer, who gets a lot of criticism, but often will come out with the odd tweet that turns out to be true and, pertinent. He said that the reason Canelo's leaving is because the money that was promised to him in escrow from PBC isn't there, and that Canelo can no longer trust them and as such has moved on. We don't know if that part of it's true. We don't even know for certain because there's been no official announcement that he is back with DAZN. But a well-respected ESPN journalist, as it said, it is true, and that Canelo will now be looking at Jaime Munguia and Edgar Berlanga for his next 2 fights in May and September. What do you make of this latest round of Canelo Agogo, Ayman?
Truthfully, and if it is the truth and it is the case, we're still waiting for something official there. We've got these reports from reporters and others, like Sir Rick Glazer. Not quite sure what to call him there, but I guess source, I'd call him under this.
He's been called worse.
It's for me. Oh, can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, you're still there. You're still there.
Cool. No worries. But yeah, for me, it's a calamity, really. It's a disaster for PBC to not secure Canelo after they've lost broadcasts, after they've moved to Amazon, and now it seems like a lot of fighters are in flux as to what their future is. And it's a sign of times, I guess, really, as to how much is coming in with the Amazon deal. I imagine Amazon aren't as sure as to how much they want to put in. It's not boxing isn't a leading sport. When it's at its best, it certainly is. But when it's not, and Canelo is the best, or one of the best, which is, and again, another sign of the times, I guess. But when it's at its best, it's a great sport. But when it's not, it doesn't drive as much as other sports would, like in the UK, football, or in America, NFL, or whatever it would be, basketball as such. So I don't think the money is, or must not be, enough to the likes of Canelo to have these deals to fight fights or fighters in which people don't have as much interest they do for other fights. And for them to be in that position to have to let him go, for me, it's a real shame, really. You would have thought the likes of Al Heyman, who work kind of in the background, aren't always in the forefront, would have things in place or have B plans to try and secure these big named level athletes in the sport to something. But to be letting go Canelo, to be letting go what it seems to be as well Crawford, real big hits to that stable, real big hits to that side of the pond, and real big boons for whoever picks them up. Now it's believed that Eddie Hearn will be picking up Canelo Alvarez for fights with Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia. One of those fights I'm truly, really interested in. The other, not so much in Berlanga right now. Berlanga hasn't really proved to be that big name player as of yet. He's a guy coming on the up, has a big following in Puerto Rico. I've seen him in the flesh, decent enough fighter at a level, but I haven't seen him in the flesh against a really good fighter. That remains to be seen. But Jaime Munguia, one that's been talked about for a while. Jaime Munguia is all-action fighter, and Canelo is one of those who, as well, would meet fire with fire to do. And that stands to be an interesting Cinco de Mayo type fight. Whether it'll be this time round, I'm not sure. But in the future, if Eddie was able to land that fight, I think it'd be big bucks.
Larry Liston says Heyman couldn't secure the 35 mil in escrow for the Jamal Charlo fight. So Canelo was free to live. I think he means leave. I like the Munguia fight, fun, offensive fighter. DB Cooper 1, comforting embrace of Hearn. Is that a reference to the hugging picture on Hearn's Insta? Looks very cozy, I must say. Canelo's a disgrace, in my opinion. Back end of his career is dull as fuck. Leon the Canteen, PBC can't afford his basic rate. If he's not fighting Benavidez, there's no need to be on PBC. Larry Liston, Berlanga needs at least one more opponent before he's ready. Someone in the top 10. He had a good performance last time, but to be fair, Paddy wasn't elite. Yeah, I think that's fair. Rick Glazer and Sauces, best joke of the night, take a bow. Leon the Canteen, I really don't want to see the Berlanga fight. Dreadful. Munguia is a good watch. Leon the Canteen, word around the campfire is Amazon are not putting up anything. They're just providing the platform. That's another Rick Glazer take. Larry Liston, doesn't look good for the PBC now. Not many stars left there and only 2 shows scheduled so far. I think they've got 2 to 3 years left, to be fair. Yeah, I wasn't enamored by the opening salvo of the PBC Amazon deal. The fact that it's on pay-per-view, it's not widely available, and it's not even a great show. You know, it's a good show, but it's not a great show, and it's still stuck on pay-per-view. It's not really, I think when we saw PBC move into Amazon, the best case scenario was that this would open up boxing generally to a much wider audience. And it doesn't look like that's how it's going to be treated, unfortunately. I hope WWE has better luck when it moves over to Netflix with Monday Night Raw. But that aside, yeah, I think the Munguia fight's decent for me. I'm quite interested in that. He's young, he's unbeaten, he's looked pretty good since moving up to middleweight and now super middle, of course. Yeah, I've got no problem with that. Perfect kind of Cinco de Mayo clash between fellow Mexicans. Berlanga, I agree. I think he needs at least one more big win to really earn the Canelo fight. But then if it's not him for September, who will it be? You know, it's probably not going to be Terence Crawford now if he's no longer with, if Canelo is no longer with PBC, although there's nothing really stopping Crawford working with Hearn and DAZN, I suppose. Who else could it be? I would like to see for September, if it's not too soon, and it may seem too obvious or too dangerous, but the winner of Bivol Beterbiev at the start of June. Whoever comes through that, Canelo should move up again to light heavyweight and either try and avenge his defeat to Bivol if Bivol comes through, or try and beat the fearsome Beterbiev if he doesn't. You know, fighters, I know Canelo's a massive commercial attraction. He doesn't need to take those risks, but his legend, his legacy will be defined by the risks he takes. And not giving fighters, 8 weeks notice having just fought to get ready for the fight like he did with Kovalev, or fighting fighters at the back end of their careers or fighting fighters early on in their careers, maybe too early in some cases. It's going to be by taking risks and then overcoming the challenges. And he took a risk against Bivol. It didn't work out for him, but I don't think that means the whole strategy is wrong. It doesn't seem to have harmed him as a commercial entity taking that defeat. So I'd like to see him fight the winner of Beterbiev-Bivol, especially if he comes through against Munguia in May with, not too much stress on his body and, not too much damage. Why not? Because they're going to smash lumps out of each other in June. So whoever comes through that is not going to be in amazing shape. But June to early September? That's 3 months. I mean, it's tight, but it's not impossible, especially if, Turkey Al Sheikh wants to put up even more money in Riyadh and get Canelo over there. I think it could happen. But it's certainly what I'd like to see. Ayman, if it's not going to be Berlanga for the second fight in this supposed deal, who would you like to see Canelo take on? Ayman, are you there? I cannot hear Ayman.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can.
There you go. Sorry, my gremlins. It's a very interesting situation because if it's going to be Hyman Gear, doesn't Canelo have to rekindle his fractured relationship with Golden Boy? Now, I guess he'll have to do that with Eddie Hearn, who has his own bit of back and forth, although Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn have seemed to unite a little bit, as is the United Front with boxing promoters right now in the spirit of that. So maybe that's less of a roadblock than it did appear to once be. But
the fact they're both on DAZN as well obviously helps, doesn't it?
For sure. But there will still have to be those rekindling of talks between Canelo in some form with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. If it's not Benavidez, which maybe that seems now more likely with what's happening with the PBC as well too. Look, Berlanga, Munguia, maybe Bivol again up at the higher weights. Maybe Canelo looks to go up at the higher weights. Maybe goes into Eddie was talking about new signings coming to Matchroom, wasn't he? Is Canelo this new signing? Will he feature in the 5v5 at light heavyweight against an Anthony Yarde? I remember that the winner of Yarde and Kovalev was due to fight Canelo Alvarez, and that ended up to be Sergey Kovalev. So could that be rekindled again in the future? I'm not too sure. There is an outside fight I want to suggest as well too, and that is he's not returning to the UFC for the meantime, at least anyway. And Conor McGregor has dipped over into boxing beforehand against Floyd Mayweather. He's at super middleweight. That's the weight he fights at now. And that's a fight in which he's interested in fighting in. I doubt Canelo wouldn't show interest in that fight either, as it's what he would imagine to be an easy payday and brings a big side to the equation too. So I wouldn't rule out Conor McGregor later on the gloves for a big event in Saudi Arabia against Canelo Alvarez either.
Just before we move on to our next topic, just this comment from Liam66, completely unconnected to what we're talking about, but says, would Danny Garcia versus Conor Benn be received well? And does beating Danny mean you're fighting at world level or for titles next? Now, I'm going to hit that with a double no, but I'm intrigued to see what Ayman thinks.
Doesn't mean he's... So me and you are on the opposite side of the coins, aren't we, Danny? Because you believe he's kind of lost a bit of a step. I still think it'd be a really good win. But I also think he doesn't get the win, really. I think Garcia's got enough in the tank to beat Conor Benn. So I think we'll find out that Conor Benn isn't ready for world level because he's going to get beat by Danny Garcia if that fight happens.
So if Conor Benn were able to upset at least your odds and beat Danny Garcia...
Then I'd say yeah.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, we are at opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, I mean, I would prefer to see him against Danny Garcia than Mario Barrios, although I think Barrios might be a better fight. But I think at least Garcia is a more recognisable name. People know him over here from Chin and Amir Khan. He's not the only one, of course. Catching it straight at my good friend Amir. But, that was replayed not too long ago across social media, the Khan Garcia highlight. So maybe we are... going to see him back in the UK soon if, the outcome of Conor Benn's hearing goes the way they want it to. Otherwise, it could be made in the States, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a fight that would be mouth-watering for me. And I would make Ben a favourite in it. But I'm happy to be proved wrong most of the time. But yeah, I mean, if he was to beat Danny Garcia, I guess, where'd you go from there if it's not world level or for titles? Beating Danny Garcia at this stage, I suppose it's, only a small half step below beating a Keith Thurman. So it is that kind of periphery of the world title scene. But I'm not sure I'd want to see Ben, even if he beats Danny Garcia, going up against, I don't know, a Crawford or a Spence anytime soon. But yeah, the last thing we wanted to talk about on this week's episode, we did an interview yesterday or the day before, it might have been. I think it was Saturday night, actually, with Sam Jones. He's always got something interesting to say, like him or dislike him. And what we picked out as the headline, it wasn't connected to Chantel Cameron moving from Jamie Moore to Grant Smith, although that was big news last week. And it wasn't the ongoing feud between Jack Catterall and Josh Taylor. And Sam obviously manages Jack Catterall. But it was the fact that, and you can see the Spice Girls themed headline there, it was the fact that Sam believes that both Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury will never fight in the UK again, based on the stage they're at in their careers, respectively, and also the amount of money that's being pumped into the sport from Saudi Arabia at the moment, and Turkey Al Sheikh specifically. Ayman, what did you make of those comments from Sam?
I also think that if either fighter was to lose, then they're likely to have a return fight in the UK, a building backup fight in the UK. I think that's what now the UK for these bigger level fighters will be used for, to get your bounce back fights, your bounce back wins, make it look a good scene, filling up a 20,000 arena if you still can against a middling opponent, if you can still beat those level opponents, and then you get your way back to Saudi Arabia. That's your route back to action, to say I'm back and I'm ready for another payday, another crack, another opportunity at a heavyweight title or whatever it is. So I wouldn't rule it out completely, because either fighter has shown their weaknesses, although AJ's seen to be a lot stronger, at least in the public perspective right now, with the way he's bounced back defeats to Oleksandr Usyk. Tyson Fury, although still undefeated, has had some issues, namely against Francis Ngannou in his last fight. But even then, like a defeat to Usyk, the rematch will happen in Saudi Arabia still. If that happens to be another defeat to Usyk, he has to ask himself if he wants to continue. And then you could probably see a bounce back fight. If it's not anti-Joshua, that will happen again in Saudi Arabia. So I get that sense of what Sam Jones is saying. But I feel like the UK right now will be an arena for those fighters who have had previous Saudi interests, that should they find themselves out of favor for whatever reason, can build back up here. And that's not out of the question for either Fury or Joshua.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing's predicated on how long those two fighters have left in their careers, because I think, if we're saying they're going to go on for another 5 fights plus, they're both going to appear in the UK again, almost certainly, because Saudi, I'm not saying the money won't last forever because they're an incredibly rich state, but their interest in boxing and their, favouring of boxing into where to put that money may not last forever. But it's whether you feel that they've got 5+ fights left. I think Fury, if he continues to win, could, but he talks about retirement so much. He's wealthy, he's got other irons in the fire. He doesn't need to keep boxing for a long period of time. Maybe he will, but he's going to look at his younger brother and see how much money he's making, rarely fighting. When he does, taking fights that he's widely expected to win, and he might feel like he's done enough. He might feel his legacy's secure as well. And he's always said he's not that bothered about what other people think of him, as long as he feels like he's achieved all he can. So it wouldn't shock me if Fury either beat Usyk twice and walked away, or lost to Usyk and did the same. Anthony Joshua, it's a different thing. I think Joshua's on a bit of a comeback trail, if you like, at the moment, and he's going to try and reach the top. But if his entry to that world title scene is blocked again, I'm not sure he carries on. I think I could see him having another fight in the UK as like a farewell thing, a chance for the fans to come out for him, and it's where he's had his biggest moments and so on. But if he were to lose to, say, Hrgović, clearly, when going for the IBF title, or he works his way back up to a Fury or an Usyk and gets blown out, I'm not sure he would then want to carry on necessarily. I think there's a lot of money to be made from AJ still, and not just in the UK or in Saudi Arabia. There's been talk for so long now of him going to Africa and fighting over there. And I think there's real mileage in that, both from a historical perspective and a commercial one. But they both do seem closer to the end of their careers than the start. So I'd say it's a small chance that they never fight in the UK again, certainly both of them. But it's not impossible to imagine. Just like if AJ against Fury were made any time in the next 18 months, that's almost certainly going to take place in Riyadh.
Put that to the side for a second.
It's a family trait, except for Peter and Huey, actually. So maybe the sides of the family are different because they're quite quiet.
But Fury said that he'd love to have a fight at Old Trafford. That'd be his dream, to have a fight at Manchester United's ground. And I could see that materializing, as well as also there's a new MEN or Manchester Arena Open, 21,000, I think is the largest indoor arena. That seems like a fight where you could see a fighter of Fury's stature having one of his farewell fights, depending on where he is. But I feel like the perfect send-off for either of those fighters having such really great careers is like a Wembley send-off, isn't it, Danny? You could see both of those fighters having that last Wembley send-off, and everyone turning up to wave that fighter goodbye.
Is Fury a proper football fan? This is something I feel like I need to bring up because, yeah, it's a dream to be at the home of Manchester United. Does he even care? Does he even know what Manchester? Does he know who the manager is currently? Does he know what the first team looks like? Does he know the form? You know, I'm not saying you have to be a dedicated football fan, but I've never got the inkling that Fury was really into football.
What's that? He was born near Manchester, right?
Yeah. I think he was born in Wilmslow, but yeah.
Yeah, so I just remember it from being in the back of my mind, like Fury doing like a tour around the ground. I think I remember seeing on one of the BBC news shows years back, and that's just kind of come in my head. And Fury saying that he'd want to fight there. Maybe it was mooted for when one of the Wilder fights was about, or maybe one of his comeback fights. But those comeback fights happened in Manchester, didn't they, Danny? If I'm correct.
Boxing Waffles just said, "Does he know their shit?" Everyone knows that.
But yeah, let me just double check. But yeah, I believe it's the case that both Fury fought Pianetta and Sefer in Manchester, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, when he made his comeback. Yeah.
Manchester does have that significance for. So Sefer was in Manchester, Pianetta was in Belfast. So, but yeah, I think that Manchester does have some significance for Tyson Fury, and I could see him either Manchester or in Wembley having that final send off.
Yeah, well, DB Cooper one says Fury is an actual Man United fan. To be fair, he's been to quite a few games and has nothing to gain from jumping on the bandwagon. Unlike certain Aussie female fighters supporting the Leeds. Word I can't say. Yeah, I mean maybe we'll see Anthony Joshua do a farewell Vicarage Road. Yeah.
Road, but he's not a Watford football fan. That's the thing. It's mad. I think it's just a community thing for him.
He never liked Elton John. I think that's why. No,
probably. Be inspiring, apparently.
There's shades of like. Do you remember Joe Joyce did that media day at the Emirates Stadium and he had an Arsenal shirt on? And I was like, off camera, I was asking him a bit about the team and stuff. He clearly didn't know anything about them. And it was like, yeah, they're doing well this season, aren't they? Yeah, well, I hope they win the Premier League. Yeah, you know, and I'm going to win this. It's like, come on. I understand why they do it, but yeah, it'd be good to separate the real fans from the, you know, bandwagon jumpers, as DB Cooper terms them. Now we started off this episode of
Richard Rakpor, as TBS might say.
Oh yeah, Richard Rakpor. Who's it? Crystal Palace.
Well, it was Millwall, but now it's Crystal Palace.
Oh, right. Ellie Scotney's a true Eagle. She actually does care about Crystal Palace, and poor Roy Hodgson been replaced. We wish him the very best, of course. We started on Roy Hodgson got a mention on SO Live. Who had that on their bingo card? We started off this episode talking about Tony Bellew's comments, and if you missed that, by the way, watch it on playback. We had a great rip-roaring back and forth. But Tony Bellew saying that Tyson Fury only had a puncher's chance against Oleksandr Usyk because of the aggressive style he now employs under Sugar Hill Steward. And we asked our viewers, is Bellew being salty or sensible in his comments? 62% said he is being salty. So take that, Tony Bellew. Although as long as you get home safe, I'm sure you won't mind. But yeah, 62% say salty, only 37% say sensible. So we shall see. Maybe that bodes well for Tyson Fury. I want to thank you all for joining us. Please do give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Thunder Road wasn't here to remind me this week. And also a subscription if you're not already a subscriber. If you're watching this on playback, you obviously cannot contribute now to the live chat, but you are able to leave some comments and we will read them and respond to some of them. So please do that. But as is always the case on SO Live, the final closing comments go to my colleague, Mr. Ayman Khan.
Yeah, the final closing comments are we had some developments whilst we're live on air, and it's believed to be that Canelo Alvarez has now reportedly decided to fight Jaime Munguia in Las Vegas, May 4th, Cinco de Mayo. So that's according to Chava ESPN. I believe that's Salvador Rodriguez is reporting that. So good.
Yes, he's the guy who broke the original news about Canelo leaving PBC for DAZN.
And I think that's a much needed fight, to be honest with you. That's a real fight that has actual bearing and consequence and interest in that fight. So I think that's a much needed fight. If that fight does indeed go over the line, whoever is funding that fight still has to pay Canelo the money for that. If they've got to show that they've got that money as well too, which I'm sure they probably will do. But we'll keep on top of that. We'll be keeping on top of as well the Telford show in the UK. I'll be there myself. Keen interest as well too. You might see the winner, specifically if it's Sam Eggington as well too, in with Conor Benn. I think that's an outside choice as well too. But yeah, we'll keep you abreast of all of the boxing news, updates, and interviews live here on Seconds Out. Pleasure having you all in the chat. Thank you so much. Make sure you tune in to us next week as well too. Back at the time of 5 p.m. If Vinny Kiss would like to give you a kiss in return, and make sure he'll be here at 5 p.m. as well too. But we will be here nonetheless. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.